Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to episode 4 of Vagina Devil Magic, a podcast by me, Lisa Lee Curtis. And seriously, thanks for tuning in. I'm having a blast doing this and hearing from you guys, whether it be in the comment sections from the platform you're listening in on, or if you're yelling at me on Facebook, if you're emailing me directly. I love all of it. This has been great. So today's disclaimer: no storms going on right now, no geckos that they should be sleeping, but I have a geriatric mastiff, my sweet 11-year-old Princess Harley, short for Harley Quinn. All 100 plus pounds of her are in the office with me, and she's sleeping, and her bed is directly to my left, and that's her spot in my office. Sometimes she snores, sometimes she loudly dreams. She chases many a dream bunny. So, we'll see how it goes. So a few of you have asked me about my guilty pleasures. Steve, Kelsey, and Brian's, I think one other person, all of you want to know what my guilty pleasures are for some reason. Well, I'm going to start out by just nuking that whole guilty pleasure thing from space. I do not feel guilty for any of my pleasures. None of them. None of them are illegal. None are harming anyone except for occasionally maybe myself. But, I'm a big fan of a quote mostly attributed to Carl Bukowski, one that I have actually wanted inked on me forever. Find what you love and let it kill you. I read that and I'm just like, damn, I don't know, it just speaks to me. I mean, predating that even, there was the tattoo that I saw on Angelina Jolie back when I was first falling into a deep, lustful love with her back in the 1990s. Quod me nutrit, me destruit. Hopefully I kind of pronounced that correctly, but it's Latin for what nourishes me, destroys me. I had decided not to get that tattoo, kind of because I didn't want to be that guy who gets the same tattoo as someone, and I don't know, it just kind of felt like it might be creepy to get the same tattoo as Angelina Jolie, even though I'm totally crushing on her. It just felt weird, but the quote I love. I fucking love it because, it can be taken very pedestrian. Like it could literally mean your career path, that thing that provides for you, but is also kind of fucking killing you. I think a lot of us can relate to that. It can refer to your ambition, your effort. All of that can also be quite destructive. But for me, it felt more in regard to indulgences, whether it be literally indulging in the things that bring you pleasure, whether it be food or substances or whatever. I kind of see it as indulging in your own carnal desires, relationships that bring you so much pleasure but are equally bad for you for whatever reason. Too many to list, really, because they're specific to the people in the relationship or the thing that is, could be harming you while also bringing your joy. Because it doesn't have to be with another human being. It can be your relationship with your art, whether it's visual or music or it's writing, if your passion for whatever it is can fully carry you away, that you feel like you're feeding off of it, that it nourishes you. You're getting pleasure and nourishment from it on one level, but it also might be at your emotional or a physical detriment. I think an artist's brain, someone who rips their own guts out to create shit, I kind of think that they feel this quote harder than, let's say, someone with a passion for crunching numbers, for writing programming code. I'm not saying that people can't be passionate about this shit. I'm just saying that people are wired differently. And I don't think someone whose life work is less subjective, for lack of better words, I don't think they're likely to see that quote or the Bukowski one and go, fuck yes, this is me. I will fucking die for these pivot tables. Microsoft Excel, it feeds my soul. I mean, I say this as someone who also has a side of me who fucking loves spreadsheets. I mean, fuck, I just made this absolutely immersive, ridiculous spreadsheet the other day by accessing my atrophying corporate brain. Like, I spent maybe 3 hours doing this fucking ridiculous living, breathing document so that I could do a proper quote for a cake that I don't even really want to make for a pickleball anniversary thing, but so I could break it down as to how much each item costs with today's prices and with these measurements and then add my fee on top of that. They're not going to like it. I don't care. I'm showing my work. They came to me. I don't care if I price them out. I don't even like making cakes. I'm just good at it. I like making them for friends. But so maybe my guilty pleasure is spreadsheets? No, still not accurate because I feel zero guilt over it. I mean, why feel guilt? I could quote Ted Bundy, where he said, I think it was, I don't feel guilty for anything. I feel sorry for people who feel guilt. Because I really don't, but I'm also not a fucking serial killer. I just like making spreadsheets and stuff. I have an encyclopedic knowledge about the band Journey and of their singers and all of that. I mean, I love Journey. The crew these days piss me off, but I love the fucking band. I always have. People are like, is that your guilty pleasure? No, it's fucking Journey. You know, my knowledge of them is probably a sickness, but not a guilty one. I enjoy Nickelback. Fuck you. I don't care. I like a lot of music that you might think is shit, and it doesn't matter because music is art, even the bad music, and that's subjective. Art is subjective, and I don't feel guilty for liking a few songs by the ultimate bro rock band. I don't care. It drives me crazy, though, when people admit their guilty pleasure, and it's so fucking banal. Oh, mine? My guilty pleasure is Sex and the City. I just love the girls. Great. So love the fucking girls. Don't feel guilty for it. It's not like you bludgeon someone to death. It's, you're just watching fluff. Fuck, there's nothing wrong with occasionally unplugging with when the rest of the world is on fire. So yeah, unless you're harming people with your pleasures, don't call them guilty pleasures. It's simpering nonsense. Own what makes you happy. I do like a lot of weird shit that people universally find weird or off-putting, but again, not a guilty thing. So if you want to know more than that, I guess I'll need some specific questions because I wouldn't even know where to start. So what we're going to talk about this week. Earlier this week, I was looking for something else and I ran across an old Facebook post from back in 2017 where I'd posted a, hey, you want to know what fucking pisses me off kind of thing in relation to an old science teacher. This fucking guy he was gross as hell, mostly to girls. So the post was me saying, you know what pisses me off? When I've referred to a high school science teacher from my hometown, the guy would leer at girls' breasts and put his hands on us, and in response I'd occasionally get something like, oh no, I loved Mr. Brendan though. As if I'm the asshole for sharing my experience with unwanted sexual attention from a teacher. And it wasn't an isolated event. It wasn't just me, because at the time of that writing, at least a half a dozen classmates had told me at some point that they had had the same, or at least a very similar experience with the guy. And it's so wild when you're like, so many people are like, oh my God, you too? He made me so uncomfortable. And so since I posted that in 2017 and then a recent post about the same thing, same guy, so many people have come forward about this fucking guy. Like one woman, a woman from my hometown who she graduated several years before I did. And so this was back when Mr. Brendan was a fresh out of college new teacher. And she told me he'd been like this right out of the chute. And he made so many girls so uncomfortable that they were like, yeah, no, fuck science class, I guess. I either avoid these classes or I get felt up or at least leered at. So yeah, no. And yeah, some of the girls spoke up, going to the guidance counselors or to the office, to the principal. Not a fucking thing was done about this guy. Are you kidding me? We were all overreacting, of course. He's just being him. For me, I had this one incident with him, and it took me off guard because I was pretty fucking sure I had never looked even remotely approachable. This is a lifelong thing for me. But he comes up behind me while he was talking to the class and he started rubbing my shoulders. And so I freeze at first and I'm like, what the fuck? Hi, because don't touch me. And this is a teacher. Why is this a good idea? And my backbone showed up that day and I said, please take your hands off of me. And he stopped talking to the class and his hands stopped moving. They stopped rubbing my shoulders, but he left them on my shoulder. And he said, excuse me, young lady, what was that? In this shitty tone because, she had said what to me? And I calmly and quietly but firmly said, take your hands off of me now. And he didn't. So I kind of shook out from underneath of his hands and he said, oh, I see how it is. Why don't you just take yourself down to the office and tell them about your bad attitude? I'm like, okay, way ahead of ya. And I left the class and, went down to one of the guidance counselors and I told them what was up. But basically got a look of, oh God, not this again. Like they knew this was a problem, but they knew that nothing was going to be done about it. It was out of their hands too. And you always see why didn't they say anything about the victims of this shit, whether it be only, quote unquote, only harassment or outright sexual assault. And they always ask why we didn't speak up. Well, because even when we do, nothing was going to fucking happen. Dude, he did this shit in front of the entire classroom. But so many people were so conditioned to think that it was okay and the faculty didn't see it as a problem. So yeah, fuck. But yeah, when I first posted this, people were like, oh God, I'd forgotten his name. He was icky. And he even had a way of pitting girls against each other. In my class, this one woman said, she says, in my class, I remember him acknowledging the smart girl table and the pretty girl table. And wink, wink, what the pretty girl table might need to do to work harder to get that A, wink, wink. And she said that she remembers feeling sick for everyone. It was a very eye-opening experience for her as a young woman. Another woman said to me, I have thought about this over the years, and I thought I was the only one who noticed. Because we didn't talk to each other about this stuff. Somebody else said he had been having sex with his students from the beginning of his teaching career. I've spoken to a few of them. He's a disgusting human being. And so many more. Another woman from my hometown thanked me for writing this and said that she distinctly remembered all this shit happening. And she went on to say, one time, I remember a girl in his class telling him she deserves a better grade, because she probably did. He told her to pull her skirt up a little higher, and she did. It's totally disgusting. I hated him, and I hated his class. Someone else who had an experience very similar to mine, she said, he looked down my shirt once. I called him out in front of the class, and he made my life a living hell for the rest of the year. Fucking same. It sucked because I liked science. I was a science nerd. I wanted to go to space. The how and why of our universe was always fascinating to me. But I stopped taking science-based classes in high school because of this guy. It just wasn't worth it. I mean, there was one other science teacher, and he was kind of a dick too, but it's like, why fucking bother? And this is just from my own hometown that I've shared with you already. This is just people from Astoria, Oregon, and their experiences dealing with this dude. So many other women wrote in, though, from elsewhere. And one said, I had a couple pervy teachers growing up. One of them was eventually convicted of being a pedophile. Another shared a story about her own biology teacher, Mr. McMillan, who got caught and got in trouble, but only after a girl figured out that there was a hidden video camera under her desk. Jesus. And another woman shared the story of how her old science teacher married one of his students 3 months after she graduated. He had gotten her pregnant. Great. Seriously, and these are just the stories, just some of them, about just the science teachers. And it's not just science teachers. Don't worry, creepy old dudes teach all the subjects. But there are so many creepy science bros. Teresa chimed in with, we had one of those too. Also a science teacher. What the fuck? Hashtag not all science teachers, but a fuck of a lot of them. So, and yeah, it's not like the boys haven't been terrorized. I didn't have any science-based ones, but a man who follows my stuff wrote me to tell me about the priest in his parish who molested hundreds of boys. And after this pedo priest went after him for a bit, his own father didn't even believe him. His dad's apologized since, but Jesus Christ. Speaking of Jesus Christ, the other day somebody got on me about using God's name in vain, and in a comment section, I'm like, lady, that's your God, not mine. Doesn't mean a thing to me. Fuck, lady, your God has people who are claiming to represent him while also trying to fuck little boys, and then has more men scooting those predators around to different parishes to conceal their fuckery. So yeah, no thank you. Anyway, we were always taught to keep this shit to ourselves, right? It's embarrassing. Why? I don't know what's supposed to be embarrassing for us, but we were made to believe it is. And so many young women feel shame for things that happen to them, even just in the classroom. That things happen to them in the classroom and they still felt alone. The conversation has been ongoing, much to the chagrin of inadequate men who feel threatened by our very existence, about gender disparity in so many different industries, not only in regard to pay, but in regard to different fields of study or career paths, and why women are not well represented, despite what seems to be an early interest among young girls, historically as well as today. One of the quote-unquote arguments about gender disparity in science fields in tech, usually for men, sadly also from women who, since they're not interested in science or STEM or tech or anything like that, their perspective must apply to all women, but they'll argue, well, women just aren't attuned to those careers. They don't care as much. It's just because they choose not to go into those fields. But like, we know that's bullshit. There are so many fields that historically women weren't even allowed to partake in because of their gender. In the first volume of my books, I think it's chapter 49, about Mary Anning, an early paleontologist called a fossilist back then. She made these amazing discoveries and she was so knowledgeable, but she wasn't allowed into the buildings where her work was because, well, she was a woman. Fucking hell. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention an email I got a couple of days ago from a woman who's followed my stuff for a while. Her email starts out, "Holy shit, I don't even know where to start. I'm going to be 70 soon, and I've been patronized for my interest in science for my entire life." She goes on to tell me how her love for science and outer space was a lifelong thing. This poem she wrote and won an award for in the 2nd grade, and it's about her marveling over the idea of space travel. I swear to God, we're a few years apart, but she sounds so much like I was as a little girl. And she told me that she was an avid sci-fi reader and watcher, and how so much of that was for her an escape from sexual abuse. She longed for the world to be a better place where everyone had a chance and was equal. And you saw so much of that in what was possible in sci-fi, so I totally get it. But the part that did me in as a little girl who wanted to be an astronaut, and this was really just before you saw girls being encouraged to go into these fields. Like, there was this thing that we had, like a little photo album thing for school, called School Days, and it had spots for your school picture and your class picture and this, that, and the other thing, and what do you want to be when you grow up? But it was separated by for boys and for girls. And on the boys' side, they had fireman and policeman and lumberjack or whatever. And on the girls' side, they had mommy and teacher and stuff like that. So, and also on the boys' side, there was astronaut. And I remember thinking, oh, okay. But, I picked, nurse or teacher or whatever. But by the 2nd grade, I think it was, I'm like, fuck this. And I X'd out the girls' side and I put a check mark in the astronaut side with a Sharpie. I felt very defiant. But so that's why I bring that up, because this woman, still when she was a little girl, she wrote a letter to NASA asking what she needed to do to become an astronaut. This little girl wrote a letter, probably had her parents help her, with postage, and mailed it off. And someone at NASA wrote her back and told her that she could not be an astronaut. Why? Because she was a girl. But that she could marry one, and gosh, that would be a huge support to the program. The worst thing about that is I'm not surprised. Disgusted? Yes. Surprised? No, not at this point. So, now that we can do the thing, now that we are allowed entry into these fields, there's still the societal thing in play. And along with the fact that men are still standing in our fucking way, even now, even in 2025, the stuff I was referring to with Mr. Brendan, hell, that was in the late 80s and into the 90s. And I say that because, I graduated in 89. Pretty sure I didn't just, close up shop then. And a lot of that shit wouldn't fly now, but it doesn't mean it isn't still going on at an alarming rate. Of course it is. They haven't just stopped being disgusting. They're just a little quieter about that. There's actual occasional consequences. And it's so sad how shit behavior from these teachers had such a profound detrimental effect on girls who may have otherwise thrived in STEM careers. One of the women who wrote in said, "It took me years to realize that when you're told you're not smart enough, when you're growing up, you begin to believe it, and it keeps you enchained." So now, is it girls that are still not encouraged to go in these fields? Are they actively discouraged from doing so? Is it intentional? Does that matter? Seriously, does the intent here matter? Because the effect is the same. How significant today is the number of science teachers? Any subject really, but we're talking about science. How significant is the number of science teachers that behave like lust-fueled predators towards children in their classrooms? Because while so many of us knew of our own experiences, we really didn't know how widespread it was until we started speaking up. It was a lot worse back then than most of us even knew. But people are speaking up now, and that's what they're afraid of, our voices. We speak up and shit shifts. Again, too slow for my liking, but speaking up is hard, but it is important as fuck. I'm not saying that the experiences detailed above are the only reason there aren't more women in science, but the more I speak to other women who were as little girls dreaming of being astronauts, of marine biologists, of being chemists, and so on, I could say that I wonder what happened to so many of our dreams, but it would be more accurate to say that between the treatment we received as little girls and the treatment grown-ass women receive who have gone into these fields now, I no longer wonder. I am an adult woman now, and I have lived a lot of life. As a much younger woman, after feeling like science wasn't a place I, in my female body, was welcome, I focused my attention elsewhere, and I'm fine. I even considered a while back going back to school to take some STEM classes, particularly physics and environmental sciences, stuff I probably would have excelled at if I hadn't been so turned off by scientific academia as a teenager. Because where would it lead me now? Would it feel healing to go down that path that had once called me? For me, it's definitely late in the game to be a beginner in that field, any of those fields. So even if I did head down that path now, I wouldn't experience that journey in a way that I would have had I been able to get there sooner. I wouldn't have decades to grow in that world. So yeah, that part was taken away from me for sure. So I'll remain the occasional hobbyist with it. The self-doubt over my proficiency in any of it has long waned, and I do know that even now, I can do whatever the fuck I want. So I'll remain on the path I'm on, because that serves me, and it will continue to serve me better than switching gears at this point. I love writing, I love speaking, and I love entertaining and doing what I do. I might always carry a little glimmer of what could have been. But what I do now, to call back to my great parasocial love of my life, Angelina Jolie, and that tattoo, what I do now nourishes me. It may eventually destroy me too, but that's okay. This is definitely a topic that can, should, and will be revisited because it's not just STEM. It's not just school. It's the world. So much to talk about, not enough time to do it in one episode. So we are going to close out today with a letter to Dear VDM. It's one that was written a little while back, and here we go. Dear VDM, the background. I have one son, 20, who is transitioning, assigned female at birth. I am generally protective of him because A, he's my kid, and B, transgender equals target. My issue is my mother. I know, get out your shocked face. She is in her 70s, and since my son began living his truth as his authentic self nearly a year ago, she has claimed that she loves him no matter what. As we know, actions speak louder than words. Well, okay, in this case, words are important. My mother continues to deadname and misgender my son. It crushes me. When I told my son I would have a word with her, he told me not to. His relationship with his grandmother was more important than names and pronouns. I've respected his wishes. However, at Christmas, she gave everyone bracelets. She gave my son the same bracelet as his sister and I, while giving my partner and son-in-law different, more quote-unquote manly-looking bracelets. She said in front of my son that she almost bought him the man's bracelet but decided against it. This admission absolutely crushed me. Her excuse when we talk about it is, well, back in my day, blah, blah, blah. How do I get her to understand that it's 2025, not 1965, and that her behavior is harming my son? Thanks for listening. Kindest regards, Mama Bear. Dear Mama Bear, first of all, thank you for being an amazing mom who loves her child enough to ask this question. No, we shouldn't need congratulations for treating our children well, but I'm still going to thank you because, my God, I've seen too much of the fucking opposite. The fact that your mom has voiced her love for your son is wonderful, but like you said, actions speak louder than words. Does she tend to be careless with people's feelings beyond the scope of her transgender son? Like, does she make comments about weight or hair color or people's choices of a career or anything else that seems kinda or more than kinda shitty? I ask because I can see her carelessness being part of the bigger problem. which sucks and may actually be harder to correct. I know a few folks who just can't seem to fucking help themselves, which is no excuse, but when someone is miserable enough to take jabs at people's characteristics and innocuous behaviors, it's part of a bigger issue. I can't abide by the back in my day nonsense because it's such a cop-out. Like, I'm Gen X, and I hear people my age and younger saying dumb shit like this, when my own mother, who was born in 1929, was willing to learn and adapt until she took her last breath a few years ago. She was not some saintly angel, as much as I love her, but it was important to her to at least try not to misgender folks or be phobic. You may want to have a conversation with your mother, maybe one-on-one and in person, go to lunch or dinner, where you're armed with statistics about how important it is for the health of your child, for her as a close family member he trusts, to refrain from being hurtful when it comes to their gender, even if she doesn't mean anything by it. Even if, oopsie, how something as simple as a bracelet can be so affirming as a statement of, she sees your son. Even though her actions have been hurtful, I'd remain gentle with her to a point, since your son has expressed his concern and you don't want to alienate her from your son or yourself. But if she truly loves him the way she says she does, she will make more of an effort to check herself. You can even use my mother as an example if you want, as someone who grew up during the Depression and could have been, quote unquote, set in her ways, but decided that she wanted to err on the side of adapting, like people do when language evolves. Gay used to mean happy. No one digs their feet in and refuses to acknowledge that gay almost always, outside of deck the halls, means homosexual. The words colored and Negro used to be accepted nomenclature to refer to black women and men. And sure, she got used to having a granddaughter, but shit changes. And if she can't, won't, adapt with the times, she's going to be actively and intentionally hurtful. And is this what she wants? I'm so sorry. This is such delicate terrain to have to traverse, but hopefully she will get there. A close friend of mine's family was pretty fucking hurtful to her when she came out as transgender 9 years ago now. But after a few years of being total dicks, they finally got there. I will personally never not be angry at how long it took them to get there, but the most important thing is that my friend is happy with the changed behavior and her relationship with her family is pretty fucking great these days. So there's hope. Good luck. Well, we got through episode 4 of Vagina Devil Magic, the podcast. Harley has not stirred. She has not moved. She has not snored. She has not dreamed. Or if she has dreamt, it's been very silent. So thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you back next week when we talk about who the fuck knows. We'll find out then.